All right. Can everyone hear me here? If you can, go ahead, throw something in the chat or the question, making sure everything's working. Despite all these years, I still have issues getting GoToWebinar to work correctly. Awesome. Thank you all for commenting on that. So camera won't be on the whole time. Just wanted to say hi to everyone that is watching this live. Thank you for joining. Again, the session, and I'm likely sharing that, so that probably looks weird. Session is going to be SmartConnect 2018 to SmartConnect 21, doing the move, figuring out how you need to prepare for that, what steps go into it. I'll actually do a live upgrade on this webinar here, so anyone that's watching this live gets to experience it with me, which is great. We've got quite a few people on this session live here, so if you have questions, recommend throwing it into the Q&A panel. I will try to check that periodically. I can't guarantee I'll pop back and forth during the session, but at least at the end, I'll go through anything that's been entered in there. You don't have to worry. I won't call you out by name unless you really want me to. Otherwise, I'll just answer it anonymously. So again, thank you for joining. I'm Chris Hansen. I'm the product manager for SmartConnect. Let's kind of dive into what we're going to be going through. So I've got a very few actual slides. I actually want to show everyone stuff live and in product and doing the update. So our basic agenda one, just talking briefly about why upgrade. And why upgrade, that's going to correspond to both why you as a customer partner should upgrade, and then also why we upgraded from the E1 perspective, from the SmartConnect side, and what it means for our development. Next up is preparing for the move. So if you're on an earlier version of SmartConnect, what you should be doing prior to running the upgrade to SmartConnect 21. Then we'll walk through the actual process of the upgrade. So that's going to include an install, the configuration, running the actual upgrade executable, what to look for as that's going through, what it looks like after the fact. And then finally, doing a very quick overview of SmartConnect 21. There's a few things that have changed in there, but kind of significantly from earlier versions of SmartConnect. So I want to make sure everyone on here is aware of those major changes, make sure everyone is comfortable when they get into the new version of the product. So again, don't have a huge amount of slides. I'll just use these kind of as a point to touch base as we're going through, make sure everybody's on the same page. And once again, I will try to answer questions definitely at the end of the session. And if I see one during the overview, I will go ahead and jump in and answer it at that point in time. So the biggest thing for why upgrade, as customer and partners, main thing around that is all of our active development that we're doing. So any new features we're adding in, any bug fixes we're working on, issues that get reported, those are all going into our new SmartConnect 21 versions, and those versions, whatever we name it, going forward. So if you're on SmartConnect 2018, SmartConnect 2017, something earlier than that even, we're not doing any more product updates to it, any more fixes around those. So from a customer point of view, that's the main reason why you should upgrade is anything new, anything being fixed is going into that. From our perspective on the back end, why we made that switch over to SmartConnect 21 and kind of made this update necessary from our perspective is the back end is a bit different. What's going on in SQL, what's going on in the code is because we kind of sync that up to our development ongoing with smartconnect.com, the hosted online solution. So again, if you've listened to me at all over the past couple of years, I've talked about this quite a bit, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. But the idea is SmartConnect 21 and going forward, it allows us and allows our developers to work on both the on-premise product and smartconnect.com at the same time for any new features that are coming in, and that ensures we're going to be able to continue to offer, the on-prem client in the years going forward, as we have plans to continue to offer that, and not you don't have to worry about that going away. It's a key piece to the SmartConnect solution. Now, biggest part of this is the actual upgrade and preparing for the move. So figuring out what version of SmartConnect we're on, what we need to be on to get that SmartConnect upgrade, looking at our connections, cleaning up unused integrations, and going through tasks and variables. So I'll actually do this kind of live and show you what I'm talking about in product rather than just walking through slides here. So let me flip over to, I've got a sandbox environment spun up that's got a SmartConnect 2018 on it. So there's earlier versions of SmartConnect. If you're on SmartConnect, 2017, 2016, 2015, something dare I say, ancient like that, you do have to get upgraded to SmartConnect 2018 before you can move to SmartConnect 21. And again, this entire session is going under the premise of you have a version of SmartConnect already installed and you've got existing maps and integrations you want to upgrade. If you're re-implementing or doing a new process, obviously you don't have to worry about any of this because you can just load the new version on there. But for anyone that's got existing integrations, we do have to get to SmartConnect 2018, and you have to get to at least SmartConnect 2018.1.49. So if you're on .49 or later, any of those versions of SmartConnect 2018 are compatible with the upgrade process moving to SmartConnect 21. So that is the key thing. If you do nothing else, or if you listen to nothing else on this session, that's the key piece of that. It's in the documentation as well. We have a install and upgrade document that I'll reference as well that everybody can download from our site on the product page. So that will walk you through the upgrade steps as needed as well. But SmartConnect 20.18.1.49 or higher is the version. The latest version on the site for SmartConnect 2018 is this one, 2018-159. And added in a few additional changes to it. So if we're on that, that's the key thing that we want to worry about, make sure that's working. Now, when we're talking about doing the upgrade, there's a few differences in how SmartConnect 2018 and SmartConnect 21 works in terms of how connections are handled, and then how data sources and maps are handled. So even though I'll talk about that during the SmartConnect 21 piece of this, it's important to understand it now because it affects how the upgrade is going to run. So in SmartConnect 2018 and earlier, when you're looking at the connections, we really only allowed one version of each connector in here. The exception to that is the CRM connector, which also applies to Dynamics 365 sales, customer engagement, etc. There isn't a way to get multiple connections of that, but otherwise for 2018, you only had one instance of each of these connectors or connections. In SmartConnect 21, you can create as many versions of that connection as you want. You could have that SmartConnect deployment tied to 4 different GP instances rather than just the one in here. So it's important before we run the upgrade to go through your connection list and make sure that they are all currently functioning. They all currently connect. So like if I opened up my GP connector and it wouldn't validate, it had a password failure or a validation error when I tried to open it up. When we run the upgrade, it's not going to go ahead and upgrade any of those maps that are using this connector because it validates the connections as part of that process, because it has to rebuild the connection. It then needs to rebuild the data source, then it redefines the map based off of that. And if you can't successfully connect to that connection, it's going to fail. The map's not going to upgrade. You're going to have an error in the error log as part of that upgrade process. So the second most important thing is to go through your connection list and make sure all the connections you're truly using are set up and they validate fine and you don't get a connection error. That's the biggest piece prior to doing this upgrade. Second biggest piece, I said, first one was making sure you're on the right version. This one's the next step. So making sure your connection works. I did mention the CRM connection is a little bit unique. If you had used that before, there is an option to go ahead and create multiple instances of the CRM connection. So if you're using CRM, double check that and make sure those instances, all those connectors work as well. Now, another thing that has to deal with connections is I know a lot of our customers work with files. Almost every customer I work with use files in some manner, whether it's Excel, text file, something else. It's important to make sure those connections are valid, the files are in place when you do the upgrade. Not as hard to validate as the main connectors, but we want to make sure those are in place as well. And then I know a lot of people will use SQL connections as well. And a lot of time when the upgrade runs, specifically around the SQL connections, it's going to create a new connector for any connection that you might have set up. So what I mean by that is, let me ungroup a few of these. And I see a couple questions came in. I'm going to answer one of them now, or very close to now here. Well, one of the things I'm talking about is if we're looking at a data source here and it's connecting to, say it's pulling from SQL, and do I have a good example here? think these are all pulling from SQL. We'll do this one. This looks like a fairly basic one. One specific thing is when you're doing like a SQL connection or even a file connection, there's an option to use either a custom connection in here or a saved connection with this. And if you're not familiar with that, that's under that maintenance tab where you can go ahead and set up defaults for SQL, ODB, and ODBC. I do recommend going back, at least on the SQL side of it, like if you're using ODBC for SQL or if you're using the actual SQL connection, I do recommend going back, creating a saved connection of that, and then using that saved connection in this drop-down list rather than leaving it at custom and just typing in your connection in the connection string. I recommend that because when we upgrade, like I mentioned earlier, I think we break out connections, data sources, and the maps. And if every one of your connections is set up as a custom one, that's going to create a separate custom connection in SmartConnect 21, which makes it a little bit uglier, a little bit harder to maintain. So if you have the time to go through and do this, this is going to simplify what your system looks like in the future when you make that upgrade. All right, so there is a couple questions. There's a very good one here that's asking, can we export out the maps from SmartConnect 2018 or an earlier version and import them to SmartConnect 21? Unfortunately, we can't do that. There's too much of a difference on the back end. If you try to export from 2018 and import to SmartConnect 21, the import's going to fail due to a mismatch in the objects and the tables behind there. So if you're on 2018, you do have to run through this upgrade process to get everything updated. We had to make a choice of whether including the upgrade as part of the product itself, moving from one version to another, or splitting it out and putting it in like an import-export process on there. We initially tried import-export. It got very complicated in all the different use cases for it. So we went with actually moving through the upgrade itself in product. The other question is that I've got here that I'll answer right now is, do files need to exist for all maps that are directly pointed to those files before upgrading? If it's pointing to a specific file as a source, I would say yes, because it has to be able to make that connection, validate everything is correct. If it's pointed to something like a folder data source or something where you have it checked where it doesn't matter if data is actually present, then the answer would be no on there. It's not needed to have a file in that folder at upgrade time. One other thing I should point out, and I'll mention it later, is this upgrade process. If it doesn't work the first time, you're not stuck. We don't mess with the original database, so you can actually go back, fix what went wrong, or fix the errors that are reported and try it again. So if you happen to miss something, it's not the end of the world. It's not a one and done. Either it works or it doesn't, and you succeeded or failed. You can have another attempt or multiple attempts at it if you need to. Want to make sure that's clear as well. So I talked about saved connections, talked about connections in general. Another piece of it that's not quite as important, but something you still might want to look for is looking at any tasks that you may have set up on your integrations. I don't have a good example on this particular image right now, but if you have a task set up on an integration, making sure that whatever connection that task might use, if it's a SQL command task, making sure that validates. If it's a task that runs another integration or another map, making sure that that map exists as well. I actually have a few maps set up in this environment to fail on purpose, just so everyone can see what it looks like when the upgrade runs, the type of message you get after the fact. All right, we've got a lot more questions. I'll do a couple more now. I just want to make sure I get through the main piece of the presentation while everyone's on here. There's a question that says, if you run the upgrade process in a test environment, does it update or change anything in the live environment? The answer to that is no. So if you've got SmartConnect 2018, you've got it running in production and it's live, you can leave that system alone and it's not going to touch anything on that database. So if you have a separate server set up, you install SmartConnect 21 to it, you can point that upgrade executable to the live SmartConnect 2018 database and system and run that on that server. It will attempt to convert the maps to the new SmartConnect 21 database, but it will leave the original production 2018 system alone. The only thing that I will point out that you have to be careful of is after you run that upgrade process, if you're using real-time triggers, and I'll show you this when I launch SmartConnect 21, there is a prompt that says, do you want to re-register all of your real-time triggers now when you open up SmartConnect 21? If you do that, it will disable or break all the SmartConnect 2018 triggers because it's a different version of the DLL that is used for real-time triggers. So if you're doing a test environment off of a live SmartConnect 2018, I would recommend hitting no when it asks to re-register your real-time triggers. That's the only thing that could affect the production system that you don't want to do when you're doing it to test. All right, there's a question on what happens if your license is not doesn't cover the number of connections after you upgrade. I will cover that later on. The quick answer is no, the upgrade will not fail, but I'll go into that in more detail towards the end of the session. If I forget, shoot me another question in here. Want to make sure I cover that. And the final one I'll talk about right now is we use a lot of folder data source maps. Is there anything special to note about those? Nope, those function essentially the same. Between the two, there's not any care that you need to give to those. Yep. All right. Final thing I'll point out is there's one thing that's not, one thing that we ran into that's not supported on the new version than the current version. This only applies if you use a data source type that's called a multi-data source. In general, those multi-data sources will upgrade. If you're not familiar with what they are, very quick summary of them is they let you join data together from completely separate source systems. So you could join in data from, say, like Salesforce, combine it with SQL, or a text file, combine it with GP, whatever you want to do around that. Those will upgrade in general. We do not support a certain type of join any longer in there, and that's due to the third-party tool that we rely on for that query builder, that multi-data source process. It doesn't support write joins any longer. Write joins aren't that common. A fairly easy fix to it as well is to redo the multi-source and flip your object so it becomes a left join, add the other object in there first. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. I don't want this to just become like a full-on support session here, but that's the only thing I would check on there. And again, the upgrade process will alert you if you try to upgrade it and it says it's not supported. It will put a message in so you can go back and look at that. And once again, that's related to another question I have in here, is if a map or task does not get created during the upgrade, can you run the upgrade again? Yes, you can run it again. We do recommend running it to another blank SmartConnect 21 database, so you'd upgrade everything again. But yes, you can always go back, reload SmartConnect 2018, the application, the interface, take a look at the maps or tasks that didn't upgrade, make the changes you need, and then run that upgrade once again. So you're never going to be stuck unless for some reason the moment after you run the upgrade, you go and blow away the SmartConnect 2018 database manually in SQL, with your sysadmin rights. If you do that, then you might be out of luck, but otherwise the SmartConnect product application, we don't remove the old database on there. All right, so that's the main things to look at SmartConnect 2018. Again, I talked a lot on that, but the first thing is make sure you're on the needed version. Second piece of that, make sure your connections validate. Third piece of it is make sure any files exist. If you're using a lot of ODBC or SQL connections, flip them to save connections in there to make cleanup easier on the SmartConnect 21 side. And the final bit is look at tasks, scripts, make sure those are valid. And the system I've picked, I've got hundreds of maps in here, so this is a very extreme edge case of what you're going to see when you upgrade. So your system's most likely going to look a little bit cleaner than mine. Oh, final thing on 2018, now is the perfect opportunity to go through, and we're guilty of this internally because we use SmartConnect ourselves. Before you upgrade to 21, it's the perfect time to go through and actually go through all of your maps you have in there. I don't know about anyone else on the call, but I build so many test maps and debugging maps and different maps just to try stuff out, and then I leave them there because I'm not good at cleaning up after myself. And then I come into SmartConnect later and I've got 40 extra maps that I don't actually need. Before you run the upgrade, great opportunity to go through. Each of these options here. Each of the maps, delete the ones that you no longer need. So I'm actually going to close down the client for 2018 because I'm going to go through the upgrade process itself now as we're going through. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my add remove programs. We'll refresh this and we'll take off the existing SmartConnect application. The SmartConnect 2018, we'll remove that from our system, and then we'll go ahead and load SmartConnect 21. So if you're running the upgrade, you do have to do the SmartConnect 21 installation first. You also have to go through the configuration process as part of that installation before you get to the upgrade. All right, there are a couple more questions while I'm waiting for this to run. So as I said, when we talk about on-prem to on-prem, how about on-prem to cloud? Is that different? If you want to go to cloud, you have to go to SmartConnect 21 first from SmartConnect 2018. There's not a way to get directly from 2018 or an earlier version to smartconnect.com. If you are on SmartConnect 21, you can export out integrations from SmartConnect 21 and import them to smartconnect.com, or vice versa. You could export from smartconnect.com, import them to SmartConnect 21. So this upgrade would be needed to move your earlier on-prem versions up to 21 before looking at anything in the cloud. If you wanted to make any changes or move those maps around. All right, so many good questions. We have a massive attendance on this call, so I'm very happy you're all joined in and interested in this and have so many questions. I'm going to start the next install process. I'll keep answering questions because they're all good as we're running through. Even if you're watching this at a later point in time, hopefully you're picking up useful information from this. So I'm going to run my SmartConnect 21 installer. There is a question: can 2018 and 21 simultaneously be installed and running on the same server? No, they can't. Unfortunately, you do have to do one or the other. So as someone mentioned earlier, if you have a separate server or a test system, you can throw SmartConnect 21 onto that while you leave the SmartConnect 2018 application interface running on the original server if you want. You can have multiple SmartConnect databases in the same SQL server because you name them differently, but the application, the UI itself, only one version can be installed at a time on a server or a workstation. All right, so with the installer for SmartConnect 21, if you haven't done it before, the installation itself, the installer itself has been pared down quite a bit in terms of how much work it really does. So these options that you're checking on here, when we mark them, we're just making that available to run at a later point. So again, Windows services is going to be handled for anything that we do scheduled. API is anything through the web service, like real-time triggers, the Excel add-in, templates, etc. And finally, the 2018 upgrade option in here. Checking these doesn't install them and it doesn't fully configure them, but it puts the options there to let us set it up fully when we run the configuration process and when we will run the upgrade around that. So I'm going to check them all and click install, and this portion of the process should go fairly quickly. All right, and while that's running, I've got so many more questions on here. Is SmartConnect 21 backward compatible to GP 2018 RTM? And if so, could we upgrade well ahead of a GP upgrade? Yes, that is correct. So SmartConnect 21 is backwards compatible to GP 2018. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what version it goes back to. I will open up the GP connection and that drop-down list to show you what we have in there. But I do know it goes back to at least 2018. So yes, you could upgrade SmartConnect ahead of your GP upgrade. So does SmartConnect use JavaScript for scripting? That was VB or C#. So SmartConnect 21 does use VB.NET or C#. SmartConnect.com uses JavaScript. So it's a question on how the two work together. If you have written scripts in one system or the other, the script will import with the maps as you move between .com and SmartConnect 21, but it won't compile, unfortunately. So you can move the main definition of the map, the map itself, the script will go with, but the code will no longer be, it won't compile if you move from one to the other if you've written that script. So that would be something you go in and adjust manually after the fact. We haven't been able to write a tool that successfully converts .NET code to JavaScript and vice versa automatically. I think we'd have a completely separate standalone tool if we could do that, but that is something that needs to be handled manually after the fact. All right, so the install finished. So next up on this, so whether you're upgrading or not, whether it's a fresh install or an upgraded install, what you would have to do after you run an install for SmartConnect 21 is to go through and take a look, and we run the configuration process. So there's a SmartConnect config tool that you launch after you install SmartConnect 21, and this is where you do the majority of your setup. So when you open this window, anyone using this, you have to plug in your customer ID or your account code that you have from our site that either you retrieved yourself, either you got from your partner, or you worked with one of our PDMs to get that. And that's what validates that you have a valid subscription or a valid license, I should say. It could be perpetual or subscription. It will validate you have a license. It will show you any current installs or even any previous installs of that SmartConnect database that you've done, because we allow you to have multiple instances of it. Normally we allow you to have up to 4 for, dev, test, UAT, live, production, whatever you want to call them. So you can install SmartConnect multiple times like you could with SmartConnect 2018. So I need to grab an account code. So I've got one that we use internally just for E1. So do not try to steal this, because we do track who registers against this code here. So if you use it, we will see you. But otherwise, I'll plug that in and I'll validate that, and that should connect to my TWO, my perpetual subscription that I have. If you're doing this upgrade for the first time, you're not going to see all this list in here. As you can see, we've done multiple installs, mainly to our one test server that I'm working on here once again, showing that it is in fact working. Normally you'll have 0 in there, or if you've done a test install on another machine, you might have 1 show up already. What these are in the list are the actual SmartConnect 21 databases behind the scenes that we have on here. So your list will likely be empty, or might have 1 or 2. You're normally going to want to do a new instance for SmartConnect 21, especially if there's none there. You can't pick one if one isn't showing up. So we'll do new instance on here, and this is where you're defining where the SmartConnect database gets created. So this used to be part of the installer. We've split it out to make it a little bit easier to maintain separate instances for dev, test, and live, etc. But all I'm going to do is go through here is connect my SQL server that I want to host my new SmartConnect 21 database on the back end. Make sure that connects. And then I get to name that SmartConnect database, name the user, SQL user it creates, and set the password for how that connects. So just to make sure I'm not jumping on anyone else's shoes, I'm going to name it SmartConnect. I will say SmartConnect. Well, that's going to get really confusing. We'll just put the date after it so I know when it is that I'm doing this. And that's not even the date. It's 4/19. I don't know why I'm saying 4/21. You can tell I'm aware of what I'm doing. So let's do 4/19. Let's set a password on this for this user. I'll tab off. And as I'm going through this new instance process, we do have to create a user that will be the first user that's used to log in on SmartConnect 21. The email that I enter in here, if you've already signed up through the site and you have a subscription license, this is likely to auto-populate or already have a user filled in for you. Since I'm doing this perpetual, it's going to make me go ahead and enter one in. So I'm going to use my actual email on here. I do recommend using real emails for this process, especially if you're using a subscription place, if you have a subscription license. The reason being is if you forget your password, there's a forget password link, whether you're using SmartConnect 21 or smartconnect.com. If you click that forget password link, it's going to try to send you the password reset email to the email you've got set up for the user. And if you use a fake email, you're never going to get that link, and you're not going to be able to reset the password. So I would recommend using real emails for any users that you happen to set up. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And that's going to go ahead and create my new instance on here. So that's my new SmartConnect 21 instance. That's what my SmartConnect 21 user interface is going to be tied to. I see there's a lot of questions. We'll get to those in a moment after I run the actual upgrade, and we have to sit for a few minutes for that to complete. So that's my new one. It's active, should be green, shows everything is good. This Windows Service API Service Config, those are all things you can do as part of the setup. So if you need the Windows Service for scheduling, API for real-time stuff, you can set those up now as well. I'm not going to go through that just due to time and due to the fact that this is mainly focused on the upgrade itself, not just the install config. We do have documentation on how to set those up. We could potentially do another webinar just on install and setup of SmartConnect if we want. Doesn't sound like a bad idea. If our marketing guys are listening, I'm sure they'll set something on the calendar for me for that. But in any case, we've got our config, we've got that done. That's essentially the bare minimum that we need to do is to get that set up. Now, the most important thing after we get that configuration done is before we run the actual user interface and log in, if you're upgrading, you want to run the upgrade before you log into SmartConnect 21. The reason is this upgrade process will go ahead and try to convert everything from the old database to the new one and copy it over. If you've already logged into SmartConnect 21, it's already going to create some tables, create data in there, and it's going to interfere with the upgrade, which is expecting essentially an empty shell of a database to put this data in. So after the configuration, next thing we want to do is run the main upgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and click the upgrade process here. This will launch. Now, if you've done the correct steps on here, if you went through the config tool, it should automatically populate this lower section for you. So it's going to show you your ID. It's going to show you your new database for SmartConnect 21. All we need to fill in here is the existing database information. And I've already got this filled in for some reason. Must have saved that because I went through this yesterday on this image to make sure it worked. Make sure it was set up with the correct maps to fill and the other parts worked. And it's still got that entered in there. So this is where you're entering in the old 2018 database. Doesn't matter if it's in use right now or not. Again, it's not going to affect that existing database. This is just where it's reading the data from, and we want to make sure that connects. If your new database connection details for SmartConnect 21 look correct and they match what you have in the config tool, you're ready to click the upgrade button on here. Now, there's one window that pops up that you have to fill out before it runs the upgrade. And this is where it needs to configure the users for the new SmartConnect 21 system. So one of the major changes on there is how users are handled. Users in SmartConnect 21 are identified by email. Makes it easier for users to log in and out, makes it easier if you're doing a subscription because those users are synced between SmartConnect 21 and SmartConnect.com on there. But what that means is we need to convert the old Active Directory users that we used to use to these new ones. So by default, when you open this up, this list is going to have all your users currently in the SmartConnect 2018 database. I have a fairly lightweight user count. I've got my E1 user, that's actually me, it's E1 in this scenario. And then I had a user added in the SmartConnect named eConnect. Most of your customers are going to have more users than this. You're going to have anybody that's logging in, running integrations. You should see them all in here. And it will attempt to go ahead and build their email out and their first name, last name based on the information we found from the username on here, based on the email that was used for the admin. If this isn't correct, you can change anything you want in the email, first name, last name, again, making sure you've got correct emails in here and that they're real. You don't have to upgrade every user though if you don't want to. So like this eConnect user, I don't feel need to have that one anymore. So I'm going to unmark the upgrade for that. And what it's going to do then is it's going to ask to reassign any of those maps to a different user that's in there. So I'm going to go ahead and it's going to say, all right, I'll use my E1 demo E1, and you can see that's going to reassign that since that user isn't being upgraded. And then the final step is to set up that temporary password for it to run, for users to use the very first time they log in for any of these accounts here. So I'll prompt those users the very first time they log into SmartConnect 21, say, hey, enter the dummy password, whatever we put in for here, and then they can change it to their real password from that point on. The only scenario in where this temporary password isn't set is in this, and this is not very common, but in the scenario where a subscription is owned already for yourself or the customer, and they've been using SmartConnect.com, and they've already created users in .com. Because I mentioned if you're a subscription license, your users end up being synced on the back end between .com and 21. So if I had already pretend I'm using a subscription license rather than perpetual for this demo I'm running through, if demo@e1solutions.com, if that email already existed as user in .com, they already had a real password, the user was fully set up. When this upgrade process ran through, it would see that user already in our SmartConnect global database for our subscription users, and it would not overwrite the password with the dummy one here. It would leave it set to what the real one was. Again, that's not a common scenario because normally if you're upgrading, you haven't used .com or 21 yet, so your users aren't going to exist. So they'll have they'll have this temporary password till they log in and set the real password for the first time. All right, so I'm going to click OK on that. That's going to kick off the upgrade process, and I'm going to flip back to questions because there are a lot in here. So apologies if I do not get through all of them. All right, just to confirm, if 2018 and 21 are installed on separate servers, will those services run only the maps related to its version database? Yes, that is correct. So I'm assuming you're talking about services related to like our Windows service and our API service. If those are on separate machines, if they've been configured through either 2018 or 21, they are tied to that database. They are tied to those maps. Nothing's gonna interact with each other. You don't have to worry about those licenses on there. Next question is, can we remove an instance from the license or do we need to contact support? That is a great question. So in that configuration tool, when I had it open, I had multiple instances down below there that were listed. So obviously our license is opened up for our testing to allow me to get past 4 instances. Yes, you can retire your own instance from there. We do require that you still have a connection to that SQL server, to that database that was in place. And you can right click on anything in any one of those instances in the config tool, right click it, say retire, and it's no longer going to count against your instance limit on the back end. If you've lost access to that server, it does happen mainly on the partner side. So if you've set up a demo, or if you no longer have access to that server, or if you blew away that database, then you cannot remove that instance on your own, and that's where you need to contact support. But we do have a process that we can follow that allows us to mark an instance inactive or retired from our side if you can no longer do it from your own end. All right. Question on here, can you connect to multiple Dynamics GP installs? We have multiple clients on Citrix servers with their own SQL instances and GP installs. Yes, on SmartConnect 21, you can do that. Any connection that you can set up in SmartConnect 21, you can set up as many instances of that connection as you want. Each instance of that connection will count as another, it will count against your connection count. So if you're on subscription, if you're on a particular perpetual level, it will count against your connection cap. But yes, you can do multiple GP connections on there. A few other questions. Sorry, I can't get to quite all of them because I know we're already running fairly long here. But do you have to use the SmartConnect user? Or you could use another like SA. I'm assuming that's related to the original database connections. In that case, yes, you could use SA. Really, anything with full access to that SmartConnect database would work for the original database connection details. You don't have to use that SmartConnect SQL user. You can use the SA to generate that. All right, so I will try to answer more of the comments and questions we have. These are all great questions. I really appreciate everyone paying attention and being interactive on this. It makes it a lot more fun for myself as well. But my upgrade did finish. It does generate a log when it runs. So this is where I know there was multiple questions there on, can we run the upgrade again? Are we stuck? Is there a chance to go back? If it runs, if you view the log and you see maps haven't upgraded that you really wanted to upgrade, yes, you can go back and fix those up. Since I'm all on the same server for this demo, I would have to uninstall the SmartConnect 21 interface, install SmartConnect 2018 application, and go through and clean it up. If you have them on separate servers, like a couple people have pointed out, you can go ahead and go back to 2018, look at that, make the changes there, and then flip back to SmartConnect here. And what I would do is I would go into the config tool again. I would create a new instance of that SmartConnect 21 behind the scenes, so a new empty database. I would retire the existing one because it didn't work. You didn't like how the maps upgraded. And I would make that new one active and I would run through this upgrade process again. So if the log gets generated, if you're feeling very brave, you can just ignore it. I don't recommend that unless you're going through a session where you don't really care if it worked. I'd much rather view it or save it to a particular location. So again, I had a few hundred maps in here for my upgrade, and I left some of them and I set some of them up on a way to have it fail on purpose. So you get your upgrade log that generates on here. We're gonna have the list of what failed, and at the very end, we'll have the maps that didn't upgrade. So if you're just looking for the quick summary of what didn't come across, scroll to the bottom, you'll get your map ID list of what's in place, what isn't, that went through. And then up above, it's going to tell you what happened to fail. So on my account, I have I've got a Salesforce connection on this demo environment that was not set up correctly for production. I've got details in there for a sandbox, even though it's expecting production. So it's saying, all right, the data sources failed for a couple of these based on the connection. Because those data sources failed, I can go ahead and see later on that these two maps that were related to those data sources did not upgrade either. So my account bulk, item bulk for GP and Salesforce didn't upgrade. A couple of them I left on unsupported destination types on there. There was a CRM 2011 bulk destination that's no longer in 21. It's telling me those didn't upgrade because that destination type no longer exists. That would be an easy fix for me to go back and unmark the bulk option, flip it back to a regular CRM destination rather than the bulk one to get those to upgrade before they came through. And then finally, I had a couple on here where the map itself upgraded. So GP orders real time and the CRM orders to nav orders real time. Those aren't in the list of not upgraded. So they did upgrade, but the task on each of those did not upgrade correctly. So it's telling me to go back, check that task, see if the map it's trying to run exists, which, spoiler, it doesn't. I removed it to make it fail on purpose. But that's an example of a task not updating, even though the map itself did go through. So you can save this log, you can go back to 2018, you can fix it all up. Otherwise, if you're happy with the results, you can come in here and walk through everything again. So if that's all good, we can close down the upgrade. We can launch the UI itself here, and we'll go through and log in with my email that I've got set up on here. And I can't remember what I did for the password. I think it was this. And I'm incorrect. It was not that. Well, that makes for an embarrassing demo. If I don't remember what I set for my one password, I'm going to switch to this user. All right, so since I couldn't remember the password of my main user, I just configured. I flipped over to one of the users that I upgraded with my dummy password, just named password. It says I'm required to change my password on here. Let's do that. This is what happens when you do everything live. We type stuff wrong. I forget what it is, but that should allow me to log in. So that's going to log in at 21. So we'll see what we get here. Thank you for the comments. I know password was the password on there. That's what I used for the demo, AUnsolutions.com user. My user was created as the admin beforehand, so I should have set it to a different password, and I did type something different, but I was talking when I did it, so I don't remember what I actually typed. So that's why I couldn't get into the Chris.Hansen one. All right, so a few other questions. We have to add the service account as an admin in SmartConnect. How do you add a service account with email? So that question is related back to SmartConnect 2018. When you set up the Windows service, you got to set that up to run under a specific Windows domain account. You added that into the security in SmartConnect 2018. That configuration is a little bit different now for SmartConnect 21. When you go through the config tool and you define the Windows service or the web service, you actually tie it to an email user again through there. So even though the service itself is running under a Windows domain account, it's going to be using the permissions or credentials of the user that you set in the config tool, which will be an email, an actual email user when it's determining permissions on what that service can and can't run from a SmartConnect perspective. Question is, upgrade is all or nothing. You can't select what maps to upgrade. That's correct. It does bring all or nothing, which again, I know I'm getting kind of late in the session already, but if you're doing the upgrade, I recommend cleaning up maps you don't want beforehand. After you run the upgrade, you're free to clean up whatever you want in 21. So if it brought over a lot of integrations you no longer need, just delete the ones that upgraded that you don't want from there. Or if you're upgrading to SmartConnect 21 and you're upgrading to that SmartConnect 21 like test environment or a QA environment, you can then go ahead and export out anything that upgraded out to the SmartConnect 21 formatted exports and import those maps into a live SmartConnect 21 production database if you want to do it that way. Some of our larger customers have taken that route where they'll run that upgrade, but they're running it to SmartConnect 21 in a test environment, testing out, making sure maps run as expected, making sure everything processes, and then as they're ready, they're exporting maps from there, importing them to their actual production SmartConnect 21 as kind of that two-phase process. All right, so I logged into SmartConnect 21. If you use SmartConnect at all in the last decade or so, system maintenance is your friend. You need to run that when you launch a new version. So it needs to run through and make sure that everything has been completed on here. So my install is completed. Didn't have to do much for this initial one because that upgrade process should have done most of the work on the back end initially. Now, circling way back earlier to an earlier comment on if you run this on a test environment, does it affect your production 2018? And I said no, unless you re-register your real-time and change data sources. This is where you'd want to click no if you don't want to go overwrite the 2018 triggers with what you've got in here. So we do put this prompt in here, like 95% of the time I'd say you're going to be hitting no on this, because generally you're not going to want to kill your live processes until you're ready. And really at this point after the upgrade, I just want to make sure the maps are in here and everything works the way it should. All right, so I'm going to click no on that, and we're into SmartConnect 21. So again, I had a very long section planned on what's different in here and walk through everything. Due to the great questions, and I'd much rather answer what everyone was asking as we're having in here. I'm going to continue to answer most of the questions. I am going to do a quick overview on a few things that have changed in here though. Again, with security, everything is tied to an email user now. I know there's another question here about the service accounts and such. I'll probably answer that at the very end of the session. I've got a lot of other stuff to go through, so I'm not ignoring you. Just a lot of topics to cover at the moment. But we've got our users. We've got our users in here. I can add more now at this point. We can add them from here. We can copy existing users to new ones, do that same security stuff that you're used to in the older SmartConnect, except now main difference, it's email instead of domain user. For the integrations and data sources itself, if you haven't used SmartConnect 21 before, you're going to notice this menu is quite a bit different. But if you've used SmartConnect 21 at all, or if you use SmartConnect.com, the menu structure is a lot more similar between the two of them now, and it kind of makes sense as you flow through it. So as you create an integration, first thing you need is connection, then you set up where you pull your data source from, and then finally you tie it together on the actual integration itself. So all my stuff came across on here. I could open up each of these to confirm that it did. The biggest changes are going to be that data sources are fully broken out from the integration itself now. If you haven't followed along in the last couple of years, this was a major change on here. You're no longer configuring the data source on the map itself, and it's no longer tied to just that map. They get configured separately on here. So again, this is a bit of an edge case, but I had hundreds of different maps, so I've got a ton of different data sources for each map. So what the upgrade does is it names the data source the same as the map itself, and then it links it to it. So depending on how ambitious you are and how much you want to clean it up, if you have a lot of data sources that were very similar, but in the past on earlier versions of SmartConnect 2018, you had to have one data source per map because it was tied to it. Now you could consolidate it down a bit if you want and say one data source and go link that out to multiple maps on there. Same thing with connections. I left mine at kind of worst case scenario where I used custom connections. I didn't try to consolidate it all beforehand, and it generated all my different connections in here. So the good news is if you are on a perpetual license already on SmartConnect 2018, you're grandfathered into those perpetual licenses, so it's not going to stop working when you do that upgrade. You still get your unlimited connections on there, provided you stay on the, if you talk to your PDM on there, or your account manager, if you stay on the business plan for perpetual and stay up on AAP, you'll remain grandfathered in with those unlimited connections. If you change to a different plan, or if you're using subscription, then you're going to fall under one of those connection buckets or brackets after that upgrade, as everything's tracked through here. So if you're over the limit, it's also not going to turn off on you right away. It will warn you if you are over a limit though. It'll say what your connection count currently is and what your plan allows for, and we give you 30 days to go ahead and kind of consolidate those down, because a lot of times with the upgrade, especially with this one, I didn't use save connections. So a lot of my SQL connections in here, I can configure a new connection or configure one of these existing ones and then go to the maps and flip them to that connection without losing anything, and then remove the connections I don't need that are duplicates in here. The final thing I want to talk about, and then I'll go back to questions because I know there's some really good ones in there, is there's a few things that have been deprecated on SmartConnect 21. The biggest ones being the old REST service and the old SOAP service. We haven't gotten rid of it. We're just no longer providing updates or new functionality in there. For the SOAP web service connector, there's no new version of it. So if you're using that, that's still what you continue to use. It's just not being actively worked on anymore. If you had any REST-based connection maps on 2018, those would still fall under this legacy connector. So you can see I had a few of them set up on my demo environment. Those are still there. Your maps still make use of that. But going forward, and if you're looking for newer features on that, that is something you'd manually have to do to go ahead and convert those legacy REST connections over to our new REST services in here and get them set up on the new method. It's a little bit of work because you have to manually do it, but I highly recommend it because we handle so many more authentication types. The interface is a lot cleaner. We handle different payloads of data. It's a much better experience than our old initial REST connector was. So those have been deprecated, even though they're still in product for you to make use of for legacy REST and legacy web service. And I apologize if I'm going quick. I'm trying to get through everything and respect everyone's time. For the SmartConnect API itself, there's no longer a SmartConnect SOAP web service. Depending on how old of a version of SmartConnect you're on, you might have been using SmartConnect SOAP service. There's only the WCF service now. And if you have any of your own custom applications calling into that SmartConnect WCF service, the authentication to that has changed slightly. All the web methods are the same. All the ways it sends and receives data is still the same. But in the past, you used to pass through once again, a domain user and password. You now pass through an email and password of one of the users you have set up in SmartConnect security as part of that. All right, so that was a lot of stuff to cover there, and I apologize. I expect a little bit more time for being in SmartConnect 21, but the main gist of this was getting through the upgrade itself and getting prepared for that. So this time, again, the session's just an hour long. We got about 6 minutes. I will go through additional questions that I'm seeing on here. I'll flip to the slides just briefly, but we covered everything in product that I would have had on the slides anyway. I'll try to answer what I can here. Before I fully dive into Q&A, again, if you have any questions, you can contact me at chris.hansen@aunsolutions.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. If you're really feeling bold, go ahead and tweet at me on Twitter. If you'd like assistance with doing an upgrade, or if you want our team to help review some stuff, our support and services team are fully able to do that as well. We've got a great support team. They've gone through multiple different upgrades with a lot of customers already to this point, so they're definitely willing to help out and help analyze anything or answer any questions you might have that I'm not able to get to at this point. All right, so for additional questions, again, if you want to stick around now, I'm just going to be doing Q&A at this point. So if you want to drop off, you can. Quick answer to a question is, will this be posted at some point? Yes, this should be made available at some point. I don't know exactly when. I'll go talk to somebody that does after this, but yes, especially if you were registered for this, you should get another link or another way to view this after the fact for anything that you may have missed when answering an email or two during the session. Otherwise, again, huge thanks to everybody that watched this live. Thank you for interacting and paying attention. I'll do Q&A for the last few minutes. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you. All right, so a couple more questions. One of them is the maps. Again, if you're still listening on here, if you got questions, post them in, I'll answer. I can run a few minutes late. Again, if you've got to drop off, go ahead and do it. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all. I'm just happy people were here to this point. So question is, if any of the maps fail, will it still show up in SmartConnect 21, or is upgrade all or nothing? So if the map itself reports failure in that, I closed it down on the config here. If it reports failure in the text log that generates and it shows map that wasn't upgraded was in that log, it's not going to show in SmartConnect 21. If the upgrade occurs and the map succeeds, but it says a task failed on it, the map will still be there, but it would be missing the task that did not upgrade as part of that. Your system maintenance ran fast. What if the client has over 50 plus databases? So the system maintenance itself should run pretty quick, no matter the amount of the databases. The part that won't run quite as quick is the upgrade process itself, because that's what's doing all of the work. So that upgrade process that I run after the config, but before launching the user interface, that upgrade process, not only is it converting all the database records and tables and everything over to SmartConnect 21, it's also doing what system maintenance would have done, which is why system maintenance runs so quick after I launch it when I bring that up. So the upgrade itself is going to take a bit longer on there if they've got a ton of database different connections. But system maintenance, when you get in the UI, that should be just as quick. All right, so is there a max number of connections per server? If we have 6 separate customers on the same Citrix pair, is there a limit? Each customer has their own license. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I'm reading it right, and apologies, I'm technically in front of a lot of people. What I can say is, for the back end of SmartConnect, when you're in the config tool, we give everyone access to 4 instances of SmartConnect, and those should be treated as like dev, UAT, whatever else, QA, live. I messed up those names, but one of your instances should be live of SmartConnect 21. Within the application itself, you will have access to however many connections that your license allows for. In this case, it sounds like each customer has their own license, which makes it tricky because normally you're only plugging in 1 license key per install. So that might be worth a further conversation. Again, my email is chris.hansen@e1solutions.com. I probably want to discuss that a little bit more after the call, because we do have some partners that buy essentially the top level subscription for themselves, and then you can add additional connections in at a set amount per month on there if needed. So they actually own the license themselves rather than each individual customer, and then they have all the customers in that same SmartConnect install, but they each have their own set of connections. If each customer has their own separate license key, they're going to need you're going to need different quote unquote application servers to run a different user interface for each unique customer license key, because each one would have their own database, if that makes sense. So again, that's a bit more of an involved question than I probably have time to really dive into here. Email, let me just put on the screen here. I'm not being very smart, am I? I don't have it in PowerPoint, so if someone suggests PowerPoint, that's my fault. I don't have it on there. That is my email. Let me go ahead and there we go. If you want to contact me, you can send anything through to that. I do have quite a few sessions today and tomorrow. I will try to get through everything to get to questions that have come up, or at least point you to the right person on here. All right, last question, and then we probably need to call it. Again, we still have a lot of people on. I'm thoroughly impressed. All of you should go buy yourself something for just for fun. Lunch, breakfast, whatever time it is, dinner. Can you install SmartConnect 21 on server A, but point to an upgrade from SmartConnect 2018 on server B? Yes, yep, absolutely you can. So again, common scenario is, in this case, server B has SmartConnect 2018. It's actually a live production server for their current stuff that's running. You spin up server A as a dev environment, dev server, or again, just another live server that is separate. Install SmartConnect 21 on that server A, run the config on server A, and get that new SmartConnect 21 database created. And again, that SmartConnect 21 database can be on any SQL server. It could be on the existing one. It could be on a new one. It doesn't directly interact with the existing one. And then when you run the upgrade process, you point the upgrade process to the old server B, SmartConnect 2018, which is still live. You point it to it to connect to it. Then we go ahead and run the upgrade process, and it will copy data over to the new server A, where SmartConnect 21 is, without affecting server B. So once again, the existing 2018 database does not get changed in any way by this upgrade. We don't want to do that. We don't want anything that go wrong happen to it, not allow somebody to continue to use that or go back to it. So we don't touch that, which allows us to run the upgrade multiple times if we want. It also allows you to upgrade to 21 while you're still live on 2018 and test out 21 at the same time without causing issues. All right, so we're a little bit over. We still got people here. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. In this, feel free to send it through to my email here. You can send it in to, there's a support chat as well on our website. If you know somebody else that you like better at our team at E1 Solutions, send the question over to them. They can probably get you an answer as well. But yeah, finally, thank you all once again. Hope everyone is having a great day. And I will hopefully talk to you and see you all at some point throughout the year, week, month. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye.